Hi there, everybody. My name is Kyle McCarley. I am a voiceover actor. If you watch a lot of channels on, or if you watch a lot of videos on this YouTube channel, you probably have seen me playing video games a bunch, particularly video games that I've been a part of. That is not what today's video is going to be. This is geared toward a completely different audience. So if this isn't of interest to you, sorry. This is geared more towards my colleagues. If you are also a voice actor, or you're an aspiring voice actor, or you're an audio engineer, in particular, this is geared towards you. This is I'm going to be doing 2 of these videos, talking about a little bit of a trick that you can, or a couple of tricks that you can use to make your self-recorded auditions and anything that you're recording voiceover related sound a little better. So, let's get down to it. I'm going to be going over some terminology definitions and things for people who are less familiar. If you know what all of these terms are, if you're familiar with that stuff, you're probably going to want to skip ahead to this time code. I'll put it up in that corner. And it's also going to be in the description. There'll be a link to just skip straight to that if you're watching this on YouTube. So go ahead and do that now, or just plan on doing it later as you discover, hey, Kyle, you're yammering on about nothing. So, the first video that I'm going to be doing is going to be about downward expansion. And this is, it's actually, so let's take a step back. You may have heard of the term noise gate, or noise gating your audio. You can, a noise gate is essentially, takes you set a threshold, like a setting that says anything that goes below that threshold in terms of how loud you're getting, is going to be, the fader is going to be dropped all the way down automatically. That's what a noise gate is. And it lets audio come through as soon as it's loud enough to beat whatever your threshold is. It's sort of similar to like noise reduction, which you might do with your audio after you've recorded it. Noise reduction is where you capture a noise print. You just kind of record some just dead air, some absolute silence, where you're not doing anything. And then you select that section of the audio and you say, this is my noise print, to the recording software that you're using. And then you apply noise reduction to the whole file using that noise print, and it will, based on what the waveform looks like, it'll say, oh, all of this other stuff looks pretty similar to that noise print. We're going to drop the fader all the way out on that. Sort of similar to a noise gate. Downward expansion is a little bit less aggressive version of a noise gate, where a noise gate will say anything below that threshold gets dropped all the way down to minus infinity on the fader. Instead of doing that, downward expansion just kind of eases the fader down slowly. So the quieter the signal is, the more the downward expander is going to drop the fader down, essentially. And the demonstration that I have today, I'm going to be using a 2-to-1 downward expansion. My recording interface also has 3-to-1 and 4-to-1 and a gate. I'm using so little of it that it's probably not even, the difference probably would be completely unnoticeable to the human ear. Anyway, enough of me yammering. Let's get into the demonstration. So where is my, there we go. I've got 2 windows up here. The first one, this one over here, this is my, I got a shiny new toy the other day, a Behringer X-Air Behringer X-Air X18 digital mixer. And I've been doing this with analog equipment for a little while, this downward expansion and the other trick that I'm going to show you later. I've been doing this with analog equipment, but I didn't have this great visual representation of what was happening, so I think I was using it all wrong. I was either using way too much of stuff or not nearly enough before, and now that I've got this cool toy, I can see what it's doing, and it's wonderful. So that's this window here is the X-Air control panel. You can do this in post-production, this trick that I'm going to be showing to you. You can do this in your recording software after the fact. And there's tons of other hardware out there that will do what we're doing. But, and then in the background here, you can see my, my recording software. This is Adobe Audition. So I'm going to go ahead and just start, well, first off, everything I've been doing so far, the downward expansion has been turned on. It has it grouped in the same tab as a noise gate, but it's the same thing. You can see right here, expansion 2 to 1. That's what we're using. But anyway, I'm going to turn the noise gate off now. Listen very closely. See if you can hear the noise kick in the background as soon as I turn this off. There it goes. It's very, very faint. If you're not listening on headphones, you probably didn't hear it. But I'm recording in a very quiet space, which is great. Obviously, that's preferable to to using hardware or post-production to fix problems. But let's get a visual representation of what was going on. So we've got a recording going now. I'm going to zoom in on the waveform, make it really, really big. Maybe not quite that big. Probably about there. So you can see now, I'm going to stop recording. You can see now, let's zoom in right here. This is a section where I was not talking at all. I'll zoom back out really quick so you can see what the waveform actually looks like in the recording software. That's the normal view of the waveform, which is pretty quiet. We'll get to that in the other video and why that looks so quiet right now. But so that's what the waveform looks like normally. Now blowing it up a little bit, we can see my noise floor is sitting at about, if you could see that number on the far right there, you might have to blow this up and look in HD in 720 or 1080p. But right about there, this line, there's a little faint little line right in there that you can see. And if you follow that over to the far side, or even if I do this, there we go. Now you can see it. Looks like it's peaking somewhere between -78 and -75 at the noise floor. Really, really quiet. You're probably not going to hear anything that's below -60 unless you crank the gain on your speakers or your headphones. But, so I've got a pretty low noise floor as it is. So, now, let's, I'm going to delete everything we've recorded already. And I'm going to start recording with the noise gate turned off still, with the expansion turned off. And then I'm going to engage it. Let's keep it zoomed in fact, where we can see that that noise floor. Where was it? Somewhere around there. Okay. So we're going to see the noise floor, and we're going to see what the downward expansion does to it. So here we go. Look at that. Look at how much quieter the noise floor is. That's what downward expansion does. So, went from a noise floor of somewhere between -75 and -78 to now the noise floor is all the way down, like -93 is the loudest it gets. That's essentially silent, basically. And that's with the less aggressive version. That's with the 2 to 1 expansion. Just out of curiosity, let's switch that over to a gate. Just see if it looks any different. Oh yeah, it does. So the gate completely zeroes it out. I don't like to do that though. I like something a little bit more subtle, because I think it's highly unlikely that I'm going to be making any noise that I want to keep that's quieter than minus 75 decibels. But anyway, so now let's go over settings. Let's now that I've shown you what this does, let's show you how you can make this do the same thing for you. So I've got the threshold set at minus 75. We saw earlier with the noise gate turned off. Oh, I zoomed in way too far. Okay, with the noise gate turned off, you can see all those little clicks and clacks of my mouse in the waveform. But with the noise gate turned off, or with the expansion turned off, my audio looks to be somewhere between minus 78 and minus 75. So I set my threshold at minus 75 in my software. I have the expansion. It's a downward expansion of 2 to 1. The range, I think that's saying that for this purpose, you may not have this control slider in your interface, depending on what you're using to apply the noise gate. This, I believe, is saying how far downward from the threshold do we keep activating the expansion. I have it cranked all the way up because it's I mean, at minus 75, you're not really hearing much anyway. This little meter in the middle here, the GR, that's gain reduction. That's showing when it's engaged. If I stop talking, you'll see a little red meter come down, and that will show you how much noise reduction is being done by the gate. Oh, except I have it turned off. So there you go. It's reducing the signal by another 20 decibels or so. Maybe a little less, maybe like 18. Another really important setting with this is over here, the attack and the release. And also the hold if you're... This actually threw me off in the first couple days of playing with this. Your interface, depending on what you're using to activate your noise gate, you may not have all of these dials. They may be automatic, or they may just be set values that you can't mess with. Most interfaces will have an attack and a release. The hold is a setting that I was not paying enough attention to, but I'll get to that in a second. So the attack and the release. The attack basically is saying how quickly do we let audio through if we've been reducing the signal. So if the noise gate's turned on, or the downward expansion, so you see the little red meter, it's how quickly do we open the door to let sound come through once it crosses that threshold. Right now, it waits 6 milliseconds, which is very, very fast. So it's ready in a fraction of a second to open the door for my voice to come through as soon as it crosses that minus 75 decibel threshold. That's what the attack does. The release is the other end of that. It's how quickly do we engage the noise gate again once the signal drops below minus 75 decibels again. So I have it set to, well, I tried to set it to 200 milliseconds, but it for whatever reason, this software can't go exactly to that number. Whatever, 198, 2 milliseconds, not really that big of a deal. Basically, that's how quickly does it continue? Does it go back to dropping the audio back out, or how long does it take to go from not dropping any audio out to dropping the audio, like to engaging fully? It takes 200 milliseconds. And the hold is how long do we wait to start engaging that downward expansion again. This is what was throwing me off. I'm gonna, you know what? Hold on just a second. I'm gonna turn my gain up a little bit so that we can hopefully hear this a little bit better. Let's go ahead and just bring that up a little bit to compensate. Okay, so now without the noise gate, You can even hear an airplane flying overhead a little bit. So we're recording a little bit louder now, just to kind of show you what this is doing a little bit better. So if these settings are not configured properly, and you'll probably want to toy with them a little bit for your voice and your space, but if these are not configured properly, you'll get some of that noise coming through, or you will lose some of your voice coming through, which is even worse. So let's see what happens when we dial this attack up to a ludicrous height. So now you might be hearing that it's taken a little bit longer to go from silence to letting my voice through. Might even be a little bit more pronounced if we raise the threshold. So as you can hear, like, I am well above that threshold, but when I start, it's just taking a little bit of time to start letting audio through. So you want to make sure you have a really fast attack, I think, at least for voiceover. But you'll dial it in based on your space and your voice and your hardware. You'll kind of tweak things. The hold, this threw me off because I think it was by default set to something like 200 milliseconds. Now listen when I stop talking. You can kind of still hear. Let me boost the gain even more. Okay, same basic premise. I'm just a little bit louder now. But so listen at the end of my speech, how much noise is still coming through before the compression or the expansion takes it all the way out. Listen. You can just kind of sort of hear it, just kind of lingering there at the end. Just a little bit, right? Here's an even more egregious problem. Like, this is a full 2-second hold, so it has to be completely silent, or at least below my threshold, for 2 full seconds before the noise gate engages. And now we get silence. So that's why I set the hold really, really quiet. A lot of interfaces that have a noise gate feature or expansion feature don't even have a hold setting. It just engages immediately, which is probably preferable almost. The release, this is, a little bit different. It's how long does it take for the fader to go all the way back down. So if this release is set really high, it'll kind of have a similar effect. You can kind of hear it. It just kind of slowly fades out. If it's too wrong, if it's too high. If it's too low, then it might drop off like my S's or the breaths that come after I'm done speaking. Like this. This. There, you kind of hear it. It chopped it off at the end. So I have mine set to 200 milliseconds. I found that's a good setting for my voice, for my space, for the amount of noise that I have in my space. So that is essentially, in a nutshell, noise gating or downward expansion. I hope this wasn't too boring to listen to. I'm excited about this this little feature that I have, this little toy. The next video, I'm going to talk about compression, which has me even more excited. So if this wasn't too boring for you, hopefully you'll tune into that one. Thanks for watching. I'll see you on the next one. So actually, before I sign out, I should put a little bit more of a disclaimer on this. You might be thinking, I don't have your fancy mixer, Kyle. I can't do the noise gate or the downward expansion like that. Actually, you can. Downward expansion is something that's like the noise gating. That's in all sorts of different hardware. It's in your recording software. And if it's not in your recording software, you can probably get a VST plugin to put into your recording software and do it there. You can do it in post-production, noise gating, because all of the data that it's working with is already there in the signal, so you don't need it. You don't need to to have it active while you're recording. So you can use this noise gating trick with a bunch of different, there's a bunch of different ways to implement it. This is just a nice visual representation of how it goes to work and what it does for you. But you should have all of those settings in a bunch of different places. If you just look for expanders, downward expanders, or noise gates, you should be able to figure out a way to implement what I was just showing you.